Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me today from southern Texas on my ranch. And today's subject is going to be on how to naturally treat herpes. So, first, let's talk about the scope of what we'll be covering here. Um, there's, of course, general herpes, herpes simplex virus 1, herpes simplex virus 2, which is the most common. And then also, we could put shingles under this category. But all this is virus, of course. And in Ayurveda, we look at the classification or the type of this viral infection differently. So it's not that necessary for me to know if it's shingles or another type of virus. We're basically going by the symptoms. And of course, the symptoms for most viral infections are fevers. So, in fact, in the ancient times, they talked about treating a fever. That's the way they called it because they didn't know about the little pathogen. So, you can still see a lot of Ayurvedic formulas that say for fever, but we know what this is for. We know it's for viral infection. But they knew that the fever is the sign of a viral infection. Of course, there could be fever can be indicator of other conditions as well. So you have to have it diagnosed. But in this case, when we have a virus such as herpes simplex, we can see the uh, the symptoms of either mouth sores, or on the anus, on the buttocks, or on the genitals. And sometimes this virus he kind of comes and goes, and people can be kind of dormant, kind of even carriers of the virus for some period of time and have very little symptoms. So I've had many patients who told me they had herpes, but they had no symptoms. So I didn't treat it at the time, and often through other treatments like boosting their immune system and taking a lot of these bitter, terrible tasting herbs, which many of them are antiviral, antimicrobial, they never had a reoccurrence. So I was noticing that over the decades of treating people, that people who had herpes and had occasional flare ups no longer had flare ups after my treatment. So this shows that the terrain theory is what's very important in treating these type of pathogens, not the pathogen itself. Of course, we know the terrain theory is based more on your immunity, your natural immunity to resist disease, and particularly infection of pathogens, whether it's viruses, bacteria, parasites, or worms. The person with the good immunity isn't affected. The person with the low immunity is. This is why we can see couples where one person may have herpes, and the other couple doesn't have herpes, but they're involved physically, and you would think both people would have it. Now, of course, you can be also have herpes and not have a lot of symptoms, and that's also due to your immunity keeping it under check. So in Ayurveda, to avoid it and avoid flare-ups, building the immunity, building the immune system so it's able to manage it. Now, unfortunately, as with many viruses, particularly herpes, we call it stubborn, and that's now modern science knows what makes some of these pathogens like mold, for example, so stubborn, and that is their biofilm that they surround themselves with to protect themselves. And this protects them, not only it protects them even from the herbal remedies to be able to kill them. So this is why you can see people who come to me with shingles or Lyme's or herpes and other type of viral infections. They say, quote unquote, I've tried everything. Now, really, you need herbs. So, I mean, a lot of times people have tried everything and haven't taken a single herb. But even those who have taken herbs have found that some of these viruses, like herpes, are very stubborn, and you could take a lot of herbs and then still have a flare up. And I remember years ago, I was giving herbs for herpes, and we're talking more than 10 years ago. And it would I could bring it down. And then, like 6 months later, the client would call back and say they had a flare up, and it came back. So I realized I wasn't really completely ridding the virus or pathogen from the person's system but I was just, building the immune system up to a point where they didn't get flare-ups, and then they had some stress, some bad eating habits in their lives, and then their immunity dropped, and it came back again. But it was later that I've learned other techniques to help me to get rid of these, what we call stubborn viruses, and mold, very stubborn. In fact, a lot of the herbs I'm talking about today are also used for mold. And again, we go by, many viruses have different symptoms: muscle aches, fever, headaches, swelling in the lymph nodes. This is another sign and symptom of kind of systemic infection throughout the body. And of course, with genital herpes, you can have pain in the genital areas. And with, herpes, you can also get these terrible mouth sores. So now when people say they have herpes, if they don't have any symptoms at the time, I say, let's just continue with the treatment we have now. And then when you do get a flare-up, please book an appointment. Now, like I said, many people never book that appointment because it just seemed to have disappeared. Because, with herbs, they're not like medicine where you're taking something for your blood pressure, but it's just coming with like an ACE inhibitor, but it's just coming with a lot of other adverse side effects. Like ACE inhibitors lower your immune system. Steroid, damaging your liver, lowering your immune system. But with herbs, it's the opposite. You take the herbs and you think you're taking it to clean out your blood and help lower your bilirubin and lower your cholesterol. But in fact, you're also building your immune system and probably cleaning yourself of a lot of pathogens that you had in your body. Same with colon herbs. We give people colon herbs for constipation, and then they have worms come out the other end, because a lot of these colon herbs are anti-parasitical as well. And they're starting to fight these pathogens and worms, and they start dying off, and they start coming off in the stool. So this is the beauty of herbs, is that they have multiple functions. But, we have to keep it simple when we give herbs to the patient. We give like, oh, this is for your colon, but we don't, only when you know the herbs do you know that these have a lot of other benefits. Just like amlaki, for example, one of the 3 fruits of Triphala, which is used in all colon formulas, detoxing formulas, lymphatic cleansing formulas. They're all using some amount of Triphala. And one herb in Triphala is amlaki, and amlaki is known to have the highest amount of vitamin C, and thus antioxidants, in any fruit in the world. So you're taking a bunch of herbs, but you're also getting a lot of vitamins. And since these are ground up plants and minerals, you're basically, by taking a lot of herbs, like my patients do, you're also getting a lot of vitamins and minerals as well. No medication is giving you any vitamins and minerals. So I digress from the subject, but the point is, many of my clients had full recovery from herpes flare-ups when I was treating them for other conditions. But in this case, if they do get a flare-up, or they come to me specifically because they have herpes, then that's what we're going to talk about today. And we both do internal treatment and external treatment. And so we have a few steps. First step, of course, we know herpes has got this, it's very resistant virus, and very difficult to treat because of its protection that it creates for itself. And so generally, one of the first things we do is try to take what's called a biofilm destroyer. And this is only 2 simple herbs, only really 1 herb. There's other things that could work, but we use what's called lajalut. And we made this formula years ago just for this case. For stubborn infections, strips the protective film off of fungus, bacteria, and viruses and parasites. So usually we start off with this. There's just a few. Vidanga is an anti-parasitical herb. Pipali is also anti-parasitical, but it's related to pepper. Neem, of course, is antiviral, anti-parasitical, but lajalut is a slimy herb. It's also called the touch-me-not. It's a little flower. When it's not flower, like the leaves. When you get near it, you touch it, it closes up on you. I forget the Latin name, but we just in Ayurveda, we just call it La Jalut, but it's also called the touch me not plant. And my teacher in India, God bless him, he was growing this in his house because he loved this plant so much. So we give this out first because this kind of like weakens the defenses of the pathogen. And it's got, of course, antiviral, neem, pipali, and vidanga. Those are some of the 3 top herbs for killing parasites. And even though they're only in this formula at about 30%, 70% of it is the La Jalut, and it's a very slimy formula. Here it's in powder, but a lot of times we do sell it in capsules because it's so slimy that it bothers people when they take it. So we have a version in capsules for those people that don't like that slimy feeling when they're taking that. So then generally we have them take that for a few days first and start to kind of weaken the defenses, so to speak. And then our main infection formula, which is right here, which is just based very simply on ancient formula. See, in Ayurveda, we don't have to invent things too much. I mean, everything has already been invented. I guess they had herpes thousands of years ago. And we call this Ayurvedic infection formula. Get it to focus there. There we go. And there's the name of it right there. Mahashundrashan. Mahashundrashan. And we just call it Ayurvedic infection formula. But it's for fever, intestinal, urinary tract infections, respiratory tract infections, and there's herpes listed right on it. So this is a very nasty formula. 56 herbs in there, and you can see we sell it in a very small amount because it's so nasty. And if you have a respiratory infection, these have been going around. We just took this Mahashundrashan and mixed it 50-50 with some respiratory herbs. Now, of course, we have many respiratory herbs. We have some for mucus, some without mucus, some with coughing, some with no coughing. So you can, pick a respiratory formula already on the shelf and then mix it 50-50 with a infection formula, and we give it out for respiratory infection. So a lot of times this is mixed with other formula depending on where the infection is in the body. But in this particular case for herpes, we give it straight after meals. It's really nasty tasting. I think I just have to take a little pinch just to experience it. Oh my God. Now we do put it in capsules for people because I was a pinch. We usually tell people to take a half a teaspoon like 3 or 4 times a day. Now that's going to give your virus a run for its money. It's going to know if some big guns showed up, because this was made thousands of years ago, maybe 800. I'm exaggerating. I think about 800 years ago. And it's very, very effective. Mahashundrashan, 56 herbs. And particularly if it's combined with the biofilm destroyer first, is kind of, like I said, getting the resistance down. But this is the big guns taking it out. Now, sometimes I can throw in some neem capsules here. We call them antifungal, but neem works quite well for it. It's antifungal, antiviral. We use mostly for candida and SIBO and blood purifications and even healing the wound. Now, notice this is not normal neem, which is very easy to achieve purchase. This is not just neem leaf, which is what we have mostly, and probably even in Mahashundrashan, but this is neem leaf, neem root, and neem bark. So this is a much more broad spectrum, antifungal formula. But sometimes I'll throw it along. It depends on the case. And if there's a lot of inflammation, I'll throw in an anti-inflammatory. I don't have them on my desk, but if there's inflammation, I'll throw in anti-inflammatory. We use mostly in Ayurveda. We don't use turmeric. That's on Facebook. Mostly we use shilaki, which is the extract of boswellia, frankincense, these type of guduchi, amlaki. These are the true anti-inflammatories that we bring down inflammation in the body. Not turmeric. That's not Ayurveda. Even though it has anti-inflammatory qualities, we're not using it for that. Another diverting the subject, but just to educate you. All these people taking turmeric for inflammation, If it was working, I wouldn't have any arthritis clients at all. But almost every arthritis client I have has already taken turmeric. And it's really unfortunate because they take turmeric for a year, didn't get better, and then they don't believe in herbs. So I have to explain to them, I don't give turmeric for inflammation and pain. That's not what we do traditionally. That was some Western version. But it has anti-inflammatory qualities, but not enough to do much. Because we have things that are better. Just like we have herbs here that are antiviral. There's many herbs that are antiviral. But, when we're not reading online how to do something, I'm following in the tradition of Ayurveda, the tradition of my teachers. We just do what they did. What my teacher gave is what I give. And it's all within the scope of Ayurveda. We don't deviate out and go to Facebook. And often these, if there's a lot of fever, a lot of heat, then I'll give these out. Like I said earlier, Ayurveda called these viral. This is fever tabs, and there it is for viral infections, and it's called Sanshamani Vati. Vati means capsule, and there's 5 herbs in there. Particularly if there's burning sensation and indigestion and headaches, these can really help. And again, we use these for respiratory infections as well, particularly if there's a high fever. You can have respiratory infection. By the time they came to me, the fever's dropped, and then I wouldn't include it. And some people with herpes have a fever, some people don't. But this is the way Ayurveda treats it. And a lot of times people with herpes, they got a lot of burning sensation. I mean, the genitals feel like they're on fire, and there's burning and heat. And besides, and then we give another formula to bring the heat and the burning down. Others have a lot of joint pain, achy pain, and then we'll give herbs for the achy pain. Other people getting killer headaches, we'll give herbs for the headaches. But if they're having bad fevers, we'll throw that in. So, this is the way Ayurveda works. It doesn't work like here we could give out an anti-inflammatory oil to put over the inflammatory parts. And then one more product here. Well, this one here, we probably throw this in the night, right before they go to bed, like an immune formula. That's the 3rd stage. And this is Kalmeg. Kalmeg's called the king of bitters. And there's 2 anti-inflammatories, Guduchi, Amlaki. Sometimes we'll throw this in, or sometimes I'll hold this back until after there's no more symptoms. And I'll give them another formula, maybe just at bed. So remember, they're taking the infection formula 3 or 4 times a day, maybe plus a couple capsules of the biofilm destroyer. And then at night, before they go to bed, I want to give them some Buma Amalaki and Amlaki. Now, it just so happens, particularly if they're a little constipated. It says colon formula number 4. It doesn't even mention viral, but I know the herb Buma Amalaki is very antiviral. There's only 2 herbs, and Amlaki is a nice, and together is a pretty nice laxative, a mild laxative, bringing down heat and fighting viruses. I just call it Pitcola number 4 because I have many formulas for night, but we give this often at night at bedtime, particularly if there's mild, even mild constipation. Now, if there's more serious constipation, we're going to give a much stronger herb, and maybe I put some parasite herbs, because when you start killing off pathogens in your body, you have to remember, when you start taking these, you're going to start killing off pathogens. And when you've got this die off, you have to get it out of the system. Your blood starts to become cleaner. Your skin starts to get better. You're not going to just get rid of the virus with these herbs. You're gonna get, your pimples are gonna get better. Itchiness in your body's gonna go away. Your toe fungus is gonna disappear. But there's always gonna be a die off. So you have to keep the bowels moving. So there's always, prerequisites and other things that must be achieved for a treatment. And this, unfortunately, is a big problem with people who are looking for the cure. And of course, being well known in my industry, people are always looking for my cure. And I don't hide the cure. I'm telling you what I'm doing, but the problem is you have to be able to pick which one is suitable for you. There are so many choices. I have hundreds and hundreds of products to choose from, and I can make my own product. So I can, pick the right formulas and right products. And I would never just give one. As you see, I'm probably going to give you like 3 or 4. And particularly if there's skin problems, and I may even throw in like a little blood detox. And if there's a lot of rashes and hives, this is cleansing the blood, helping with the skin, and it will help the skin heal. You can see many good blood herbs in there, and liver herbs, dandelion, burdock, Oregon grape, licorice. I mean, these are textbook herbs, beautiful looking herbs there. And this will clean the blood. But sarsaparilla root, that's the main one, and that's very nice for skin conditions. So we use this for skin conditions, but also, you know, if we see there's rashes, skin partitions, itching, you know, we can throw this in. This is what we call supportive treatments. You may have to treat the liver, you may have to treat the colon, and you may have to treat the digestion, and you have to treat the sleep. If the person's not sleeping, their immune system's never be good. I would write those 4 things down, because these 4 are the minimum you need for any treatment. Good digestion, good elimination, good sleep, and good liver function. Because if one of these is out, your treatment, whatever it is, may not work well. So not only would a client get this little 3 or 4 bunch of herbs, they'll probably get something for the colon, they'll probably maybe get something for the digestion, and something to give them at night to knock them out. Of course, it's easy to give you herbs to make you sleep. I got sleeping formulas, sleeping teas, and as long as we get them off the coffee and the stimulants, we can knock anybody out with the herbs. And then once they're asleep, then they reset that cycle. Then they don't even need the herbs as much anymore. Most people are dependent on, you know, sleeping medication because they're overstimulating in the day with coffee, and then, you know, they have to sedate themselves at night, you know. So, you know, usually they are the cause, you know, overstimulating, overstress, overthinking, and doing things like chocolate and sugar and coffee. And then you have to give them herbs at night. But when you're not sleeping good at night, then your immunity is never good. And it can get more complicated fast. So you say you got a person, they've got herpes, they're not sleeping well. You say, okay, I got to give them some herbs to sleep well. But now they're taking coffee. So now you got to get them off the coffee. But then they're telling you, well, I'll be dead. I got to go to work. I need some coffee. So then I have to give them like an adrenal tea or something to get them going without stressing them out. And there, we don't use mushrooms. That's the new fad. We're using, you know, different formulas. There are some mushrooms that are good, but the way that they combine them, 5 or 6 mushrooms together with chocolate and coffee, I can tell you is a major fad. Don't go near these companies. They're a joke the way they make formulas. But, you know, you could use, if you knew what you're doing, you could use some mushrooms for your adrenal, but you're better off to just use some adaptogens like the Chinese herbs, eleuthero, or little ginseng, or Indian herbs like ashwagandha. This is much better. And these herbs is enough to get the person going so they don't feel attraction to the coffee. And then you could have another complication too. These cases, I'm doing them every day, they get real complicated because you just want the person to sleep because you need them to sleep because you know if they don't sleep good, the immunity won't be good. And if the immunity won't be good, you may not get rid of this virus. And the person hasn't been able to get rid of it. They've seen 4 or 5 other herbalists. But they've never been sleeping. So you suspect, you know, this poor sleep, overstress, drinking too much coffee has been a problem. Maybe why the past herbalists didn't succeed, even though they gave the right herbs, but they never got the person to sleep. Why? Maybe because of coffee, maybe because of stress. You have to solve that. But maybe the person's urinating at night 3 or 4 times. So now I have to treat that. I have to give them herbs, kidney tea, kidney herbs, and flush out their kidneys and their bladder and the whole bladder urinary tract pathway, clean it out, get down the infection. Maybe that because their immunity is low, maybe they got a long-standing bladder infection, which sometimes isn't even picked up when you go to the doctor. Very common. I know it because people say, oh, no, I went to the doctor. I don't have any UTI, but I give them the herbs for a UTI. Within a week, no more urinating at night. So I know they had an infection because my UTI tea solved the problem. So don't always trust your blood work when it comes to urinary tract infections if you're urinating multiple times at night. Of course, if you're a man, it could be prostate. So you can see how it gets complicated fast. Now, now I discover the guy's got high PSA. He's got prostate problems, which now means he's not sleeping at night, which means his immunity is low. So now I have to go treat the prostate too. And that's what we call holistic healthcare. This is a very, very important and valuable point I'm making in this webinar. You have to treat a person or yourself holistically. You can't just say, oh, you have herpes? No problem. Just take the herpes herb. You'll be fine. You may not be fine. And that's exactly what's happened to a lot of people. Even they've discovered Mahashundarshan. They said, oh, I already did Mahashundarshan. It didn't work. I've heard this all the time because they're not an Ayurvedic doctor, or they just ordered it, found it online, or they saw an Ayurvedic doctor and nobody looked at them holistically. If your digestion is weak, you're going to be weak. If you're living off of coffee for your energy, your adrenals are going to be poor. You're going to be stressed. The immunity is going to be low. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not having a couple of bowel movements a day, there's so many things. The body has to work, it's called homeostasis, where everything is working together and helping out. And you need that. That's what true immunity is. In fact, in the West, we often think, good health is, skinny little body with a six pack, and stuff like that. Well, no. In Ayurveda, good health is resistance to disease. You don't get sick. You don't get infections. You don't get herpes. You don't get pathogens. You don't catch colds, and you have plenty of energy. And of course, other things like, you have good digestion. You have good libido. That's a sign of health. You have good sleep. That's a sign of health. These are all true signs of health, not having a sexy, skinny little body. I get plenty of weightlifters with plenty of health problems. I get supermodels with packs of health problems. So you have to be very careful in our modern society. A lot of people with nice bodies from the Western perspective think now they're health experts because they're thin. Well, being thin has nothing to do with health. And if you're in my profession, and you saw all the health problems that weightlifters have, all the health problems supermodels have, and thin people, you will realize that's not healthy. And that's why in the old days, nobody thought a skinny woman or man was attractive, because they know that's weak. And we're also talking about weak. So if I have a very thin person, and I've had this happen where I had the wife was very, very thin and weak and frail, Vata Prakriti, we would say. And then the husband was a bigger, robust, heavy Pitta Vata Kapha guy. And he didn't have any symptoms at all, but she had herpes. And sometimes it may even come from the man, but he got rid of it and she didn't, because his immunity is stronger. And her, by being thin and underweight, she may not think they're underweight. Most women don't think they're underweight, but from an immunity point of view, they're depleted and underweight. If your bones are sticking out and you got big holes in your collarbone, everything is cracking and your rib cage is sticking out, you're underweight. You may think that's wonderful, but that's underweight and depleted. And wait till you get a little older, you'll have degenerative bone problems, your hair will start falling out. And many women who are thin and depleted like this, they come to me because their menstrual cycle stopped. Now, they're not coming to me to put on more weight. They're coming to me because their menstrual cycle stopped. But in fact, the reason is because they're so depleted. The body just shut down the reproductive system. But they are the ones living off of the coffee, living off of the smoothies, fasting, juicing. They're doing intermediate fasting when they should be eating and building and strength. That's what you want. Resistance to disease. That's called Ojai, the resistance to disease. It's that inner ability to remain strong and remain, fertile if you're a man or a woman, and to resist infection. So I did fail to mention some dietary guidelines. You shouldn't be having any sugar. Fruit is not sugar. Another big false belief nowadays. Everybody thinks fruit is sugar. There's like an anti-fruit thing going down. Pro mushrooms. Everybody's doing mushrooms. Over half my clients are now doing mushrooms. So we know they're on Instagram when they're doing mushrooms. And then fruit. People now all fruit's bad. No, fruit is not bad. White sugar, white processed sugar, cookies, candy, chocolate, croissants. That's what's lowering your immunity. They're anti-nutrients. They're taking nutrition out of your system. They're weakening you. You're making you more susceptible to infection. So if you've been eating, if you're a thin person living off of sugar in your coffee and chocolate, you're very vulnerable to infection, and including viral infections, respiratory infections, fungal infections, pathogens, uh, parasites, because you are depleted. So the first thing you want to do is not be, depleting yourself. It's fine to fast if you're overweight, but if you're not overweight, don't be fasting. You're just going to make yourself more depleted. So you have to have a building, strengthening diet, not a depleting diet. Now you can fast for short periods of time, will boost your immunity, but you've got to have the extra body weight. Otherwise, you're going to become weaker and not stronger. So, and then once the person seems to recover, then I'll throw them on an immune formula for at least a few months afterwards. And I have different ones. This one's the Pitta one. We have Vata one, Kapha one. We have all kinds of immune formulas. And we got even teas, Western teas, different products. We just pick one of these and say, just keep doing this for a few months, because we want to keep the immunity going, and you stay away from the white processed sugar, stay away from too much stress, make sure you keep taking your sleeping herbs. So I want to keep the immune system up, because a person could, because of their lifestyle, still could be vulnerable to getting infected again. I hope that helped you, folks. I hope that helps you to understand that this virus is very treatable. If you've got an arsenal of herbs and you know what you're doing, it's not very much dependent on the diet, as many conditions are. It's mostly dependent on your immunity and building the immunity and supporting your immune system with proper digestion, elimination, and sleep, and then using these herbs in the manner that I described. First stage, the biofilm, reducing destroying the biofilm, reducing the defense mechanisms of the pathogen, then coming in with a lot of antiviral herbs with every meal and at night, and then third stage, immune building herbs to make sure that the immunity, the white blood cell count, and everything remains good, to make sure there's no reoccurrence coming back. Those would be the 3 stages for herbal treatment. All right, contact me if you need assistance with this, because to me, it's all the herbs are right here, and I can be sure that I can take responsibility for your case and pick the right products for you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to hearing from you, and I wish you all the best of health and happiness. God bless you.